Globalization is an incredibly unique and diverse process. It describes the interaction and interconnection of people, governments, and companies around the world. Businesses expand internationally with the help of trade agreements created by partnering governments. Local brands become internationally recognized, and people move across continents to build or join new companies. Globalization allows people, goods, services, ideas, language, informations, and commodities to flow across national borders all the time. The effect of globalization is that the world is becoming increasingly smaller as we all become more and more connected.
Good morning or good afternoon, wherever part of the world you are now. This video is for you. Hello, I am Angelo Samson, and in this episode we will be talking about routes to globalization, the challenge. Have you ever thought that behind the positive impact of globalization, there is a negative implication on our economy, society, especially as people? Globalization possesses opportunities as well as challenges. With this plethora of benefits, you may still encounter some challenges of globalization. The disadvantages of globalization generally refers to wider socio-political issues that all governments and companies have to face. Job loss. One of the most debated negative effects of globalization is the loss of jobs. This is particularly the case in developed countries such as the United States, from where many services and unskilled labor have been outsourced to developing countries. Many locals have lost their jobs or been forced to accept lesser wages and poorer working conditions. Though it is the job of governments to protect the local workforce and create favorable business for companies, you will still need to assess how you want your business to work around this challenge. High investment. Globalization and international expansion are generally very expensive endeavors. This is one of the most deterring disadvantages of globalization. It requires businesses to invest a lot of their resources into designing and implementing an effective globalization strategy. Setting up a company or presence elsewhere, paying taxes, hiring, signing contracts with new partners, scoring the customer's base. All these things require mountains of research, capital, and time. And not all companies will feel comfortable doing this, especially smaller businesses or those just scaling up globally. Taxes across borders. Taxes can be a nightmare both for employees and for businesses. Different countries or states have their own tax authorities and unique regulation on what taxes you need to be paid, how, to whom, and when. One of the big ones to watch out for is the permanent establishment risk, which makes your company liable to paying corporate taxes. Many regional and national governments and organizations are now working together to clamp down on companies finding loopholes as to not pay corporate taxes. You will need to do your research in order to stay on the right side of the law wherever your business operates. Legal compliance for employers. Global employers also need to consider how to employ people legally in all the countries where they are based. One of the disadvantages of globalization is that all countries have their own labor law. This covers things like working hours, types of amount of paid leave, termination rights, intellectual property rights, salaries, benefits, and social security. You will need to be aware of the labor code of each jurisdiction where your employees are based so you can employ them compliantly. Loss of cultural identity. While globalization has made foreign countries easier to access, it has also begun to meld unique societies together. The success of certain cultures throughout the world caused other countries to emulate them. But when cultures begin to lose their distinctive features, we lost our global diversity. Global expansion. Difficulties for businesses that want to go global and discover the benefits of globalization. Setting up a compliant overseas presence is difficult. If companies take the traditional route of setting up an entity, they need the substantial upfront capital. Additionally, global businesses must keep up the different and ever-changing labor laws in new countries. When expanding into new countries, companies must be aware of how to navigate new legal systems. Otherwise, these steps lead to impediments and severe financial and legal consequences. Worker exploitation, many companies in developed countries have outsourced their production and some of their services to developing countries. While this has generally been good for local economies in developing countries, local workers are still exposed to high degrees of exploitation. On the other hand, more and more consumers are posing businesses with the daunting demand of creating products and services that are ethical, sustainable, and affordable. This is one of the most challenging negative effects of globalization for businesses today. Environmental degradation. Sadly, the environment also suffers as a negative effect of globalization. As great as increased flow of goods and knowledge are for people, the underlying business activities adversely affect the environment. Global transportation networks and increased market demands means more use of fuels, contributing to higher exertion of greenhouse gases. Planes, ships, and trucks transporting goods all over the world are harmful to the atmosphere and affect local ecosystems. More demand also means more production, again causing more fuel and raw materials to be used up. Interestingly, remote working can help businesses save on environmental costs, but remote working alone won't solve the environmental challenge of globalization. Alright, and that ends my report. Thank you so much for listening. I hope you enjoyed and learned something about challenge routes to globalization. I'll see you next time. Bye!